All right, welcome, guys. Nice to see you. Um, if you're thinking that I look very different to my picture, it's because I am in fact not Mithra. She unfortunately couldn't be here today, so I'm stepping in to do the keynote for her. So I'll be taking you through the session today. And my name is Frida Alberg. I work as a digital enterprise sales lead for Siemens, which means that I help our customers across the Nordics with their digital transformation journeys. How do you get your buildings to become more digital, to become more effective? How do you address all the challenges that we're seeing in the market? And the session today is just about that, how to navigate the digital frontier, these new times that we are in, and how Siemens can help our customers and the market with constructing and building this digital backbone so that you can go into tomorrow and create the building infrastructure of tomorrow. And the world is changing, right? Technology is moving very quickly, and our learnings at Siemens, or traditionally we've seen in the market that our industry has been quite slow to change, right? I think many of you have or know this as well from your experience. Investing into digital solutions has been quite slow because we know how to construct buildings. We've done that for a very, very long time. But investing into digital solutions is trickier because it's been hard to define what is the business case going to be? What is my ROI going to be? If I become data-driven, what does that mean? And what we're seeing now in the place and time where we are as a company, Siemens, but also what we're seeing in the market is that that's no longer true, right? The single biggest lever for buildings and performance and becoming more resilient is to become data-driven, to digitize, to build the digital backbone. And because of these changing times, Siemens as a company are also redefining ourselves. And looking to our history, Siemens was founded 1847. So that's 178 years in the market, going from mechanical components to a digital world. And to me, coming into Siemens, this was a point of pride. Like I used to work in the customer side for a long time and looking to which company do I want to go to? Who's doing sort of my vision? And it was Siemens. So being around for a long time means Siemens has long experience, we have vast experience, but we also have, I think, a culture of being able to change with the times, having been able to adapt to everything changing, to technology changing. And this is sort of where we're at today, technology, consulting, making sure customers are cyber resilient. But the Siemens of tomorrow is taking the next step, changing, redefining ourselves. And we want to be the strategic digital partner for our customers, helping you, again, to shift, to make this transition that's probably going to be a little bit painful, but it's going to yield a lot of results. And when I was working on the customer side, I was seeing all of these challenges and how much we were struggling to address them with sort of the traditional means of working. So, you guys know these. It's the rising energy costs. It's reactive operations, cyber exposure, and the compliance regulations that are coming down very hard. And I think it's going to get just stricter and stricter over time, whereas the building is still going to be very, very static. So whatever you have is quite difficult to change in terms of the physical world, right? It's about how can you address it with the digital infrastructure of your building. So the shift that we're making is from the running individual projects, what Siemens has been very good at doing for a long time, to building digital platforms. And AI, everyone's talking about it, but we are really seeing that in order to address challenges, you need to start the journey of going towards the autonomous building. The building that's going to operate smarter, it's going to react faster, it's going to become more autonomous, it's going to yield, better systems, systems that are working better, systems that are less energy intensive. And this is a number, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but we tend to talk about, the hidden costs. 20% is the investment, like the design and construction phase. 80% of the life cycle costs come after the construction. And now what does that mean? You could say that, well, that sounds proportional. The building's going to be around for about 40 years. 50 years maybe. But what sort of lies underneath the 80% is, what defines most buildings' 80% block is inefficiency. You have assets that don't last as long as they should. We have reactive operations. We have a lot of physical maintenance, people, driving around to sites, going out physically, not knowing your physical reality because you don't have the data, you don't have the information, right? And what Siemens wants to do for our customers, what we want to do in the market is help you shift. And one of the key contentions is that you want to act before the problem arises. This is the silver lining or the golden thread of what it means to create digital capability in your building. So sensor data, having an AI platform, and automation that's acting and that's becoming more autonomous. And I'll give you an example of doors. I'm really passionate about doors, which is like a really weird passion to have, but I tend to speak about it because doors in a building tend to be quite complex. The door environment, there's a lot of people working on the door environment when you're in the construction phase of the project, and then they are expensive in the maintenance phase. And typically what you see is that, regardless to what's happening with that door, we will go out and service it. Someone will go out and do something, right? Because the service information that says, look, when this door is open 2,000 times, you should go out and service it. Because then you're having the performance of the door and combining it with service information about the door. So in the traditional building, this information is siloed. We don't know. So we just do planned maintenance, the traditional way of running a building. Whereas we want to help customers shift towards a phase where all of this information is in the same place so that it becomes actionable. We know when the door is open 2,000 times, then we go out and do something. And the doors, that's just one example, right? But we have this capability across the entire portfolio. So for each asset in the building, for each domain that's relevant to the building, so energy, heating, ventilation, faults, we have occupancy, we have, many, many, many domains across the entire portfolio so that it, regardless to what type of building you own or what type of building you maintain, we are going to be able to help you do the shift. And what you're going to see as just a few high-level examples is proactive maintenance. You act when you know that you should be acting based on that specific asset. You have fewer site visits. You don't have to physically go out and drive around and look at it. You can do more things remotely. You're going to see more stable operations. I think you're going to see less downtime. I think you're going to see, for example, more stable systems, better indoor climate. We're going to see proactive control and also, ultimately, autonomous control. AI optimizing systems so that technicians can spend their time doing more valuable things than running out and trying to manually get systems to work optimally. And going into the topic of energy as a domain, this is top of everyone's mind, I think. When I speak to customers, everyone's talking about getting my energy consumption down, being compliant, making sure that the emissions of my building go down. And data is saying that 40% of Sweden's total energy consumption is coming out of buildings. So this is a number that, of course, means we as a market have to act together. And the shift that we want to make, as I mentioned, is for all of the systems in the building, of course, like heating, cooling, lighting, ventilation. These are all contributors to that 40%, where the digital capabilities of the building can really help make a dent in the energy footprint of that building. And then a topic that I believe is a little bit more, it's a newer thing that we're looking into, but data is also showing that your buildings are going to be worth more over time. Someone who has a digital capability, a digital backbone, as opposed to just a traditional automated building, is going to see more financial yield going into the future. And these are just the numbers that are available to us now. So we see internationally it raises the price premium of like 10 to 15%. Sweden's a little bit lower at the moment. It's 3%, but as I mentioned, this is a new frontier, and I think data is going to keep coming in to show us that premiums will go up. Green buildings are going to be sort of the standard going into the future. This will be the expectation, I believe, in the market. And another important thing we talk a lot about, or I've spoken about the technology aspect, but it's equally as much a cultural shift. It's not just about having infrastructure, it's also about management making a decision. A clear commitment, like at board level, to say, look, we believe in the business case of digital transformation. We believe in the concept that data is going to make us more effective. Because I think if you get stuck in the face of, look, we need to prove everything before we get started, you're kind of going to be running a research project before you ever get started, which is kind of like standing still. You know, thinking about like, where are we going, who are we choosing, what are we doing? And when technology is moving, when it's moving so fast, that's kind of like going backwards. And technical debt is actually just going to keep going up and up and up. So, as you know, we want to help our customers to stop being reactive and start anticipating. And the three capabilities that we're really pushing is, as I mentioned, open platforms. Platforms that can bring data out of the building, data that's traditionally siloed, closed down, doesn't yield any value, doesn't provide any ROI for your building. Making that data accessible, both to someone operating the building, someone maintaining the building, to tenants. I'll give you an example from when I was part of a new hospital construction. We had surgeons come and say, look, we have a really cool use case. We want data about humidity levels and how many times a door has opened into my operating theater. Because then I can combine that with patient data and see, look, if someone got an infection post-operation, did it have anything to do with the humidity levels? It's just like one example of real estate providing value for who's in the building, the people working in it. And if you don't have an open platform and you don't have data that's accessible, data that's structured, that use case is very difficult to realize, right? You're going to be spending a lot of money, you're going to engineer and build stuff for that specific use case, as opposed to having a platform where it's already available and you can work in a flexible way, in an agile way, to realize a bunch of different use cases as they come up. This is the future, and this is what the open platform enables, and having data structured. Standardized security, of course, is a super important topic because, as we know, we're moving into a time of stricter regulations, both when it comes to the mandatory cybersecurity we already have NIS, but now going into NIS 2, those regulations are just going to become tougher and tougher. And then we have the European Building Directive, which is going to regulate so much about how you need to be able to visualize energy data, the emission footprint of your building. So, these are topics that you could spend an entire session deep diving into how do we address these things with the open platforms and the accessible data. But we know for a fact that these are very hard to be compliant towards if you haven't made the shift and digitized. And I would also say that, this slide is about, what is the consequence? I mentioned standing still is like going backwards. So there's real consequences for building owners who don't make a change. Because, many building owners that I speak to say that, look, we have a building, it's obviously up and running. People are working in the building, it's not collapsing, the systems are up and running. What am I actually, what's the change? If I spend this amount of money, what am I going to get out of it? And what I would say is that, a non-digitized building is static by design. You build something, it's finalized like 6, 7, 8 years later, and if you haven't made a commitment to say, look, the systems that we put into this building are going to service my needs for the 80%, as we saw before, like the operational phase of my building, I am going to have assets that are not, without that digital insight, the performance is always going to drift back to a traditional way of running a building. So the time to act is now. The technology already exists. So it's not a question of, can we do it? Is the technology there? The platforms are already there, and the technology is moving super, super fast. And it's important to get started, I would say. So don't spend time thinking about, we need to do a pre-study that runs multiple years to figure out if we want to invest. I would say try to get started. Find your baseline. So for your building, what's important to you? Is it about fewer service trips because you don't want technicians driving around? Is it about lowering your emissions from this level to this level? Is it about having fewer stranded assets? Is it about doing, having less unplanned maintenance and so on? So this is the journey where Siemens wants to be your digital partner and come in and look at your portfolio and help you figure out what is the business case, how do we best get started, how do we address your challenges? Because there's no, we tend to look at what is the energy savings if I digitize? And it's very hard to have a number that's going to work for each customer, but rather look into what are your strategic objectives, what are your baselines, and how do we get there? And the tipping point, secure value, you want to mitigate risk. So automation and digitizing is a long-term investment. And as I said, I think we need to shift our mindset from considering that it's something that just adding expenses to a construction project and think about the fact that it's going to yield ROI for the entire 80% of the lifespan of that building. Because looking at traditional construction projects, we tend to measure it towards time and money. And when you do that, you tend to optimize out smarter technology that's going to enable digitization. So, for example, let's not put in smarter elevators. Let's put in the old ones that have the threaded connection. And then you're going to hand over that building to maintenance, and there's no data coming out of the elevator. So then afterwards, trying to achieve that, it's going to be more expensive. It's going to be more engineer heavy. So secure the value, mitigate your risks. And the 4 key takeaways: digitization and energy compliance and cybersecurity mandates, they are here now. So commit to changing and ensure that you don't have additional costs because you started too late, right? And one data platform where you have data connected, you have data structured. Move away from fragmented solutions. Key takeaway, very important. Digital infrastructure means lower risk, higher value over time. That is a guarantee, regardless to type of building, types of challenges you have today. And then the technology is already available, as I told you. So don't wait to get started. Get started now. It's already here. And the future of buildings, it's intelligent, it's going to be connected, and most of all, sustainable. So we move into a greener future and a better future, and make sure that we get that 40% down. So with that said, I think my time is about up. I would encourage you guys to come see Siemens at the Energy Lounge over in Hall A, where we have our specialists. You can deep dive with us and ask any questions that you might have. Thank you, guys.